everybody, and welcome to the Positively Disney podcast. I'm Kimberly Bouchard, your host of the show and the author of the Positively Disney book series. I'm so glad you could join me tonight, and we have got a wonderful guest for you. But before we do that, I just want to let you know, as usual, when I am interviewing someone, please feel free to make some comments, or if you have a question of your own, just type it in to me, and I will make every effort I can to ask her the questions for you on your behalf. And welcome. Hi, Chad. Nice to see you joining me this evening. At any rate, I also want to thank my sponsor, Michelle McCune, over at Years of Experience. If you want a fantastic vacation planned, including texting privileges with her while you're away on vacation. So if you run into a snag, you just have to text her and she will do everything that she can to help you immediately. You can reach her at mmckeown at themouseexperts.com. That's mmckeown at themouseexperts.com. Just let her know that I sent you. Also, welcome to Michelle Cicino. She just actually spent the day in Epcot. I'll tell you, I envy you guys that live near the parks, but I hope you had a wonderful day, Michelle. You know, I cannot believe that Walt Disney World is 49 years old. And believe it or not, today, 49 years ago, the attraction 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea opened at Walt Disney World. It was actually 2 weeks after the park had opened in its entirety. And it's just a wonderful attraction. I remember being on it with my family many years ago. And of course, things change and evolve, but it was a very good memory for me. Want to welcome also Regina. Thanks, Regina, for joining me tonight. So I've got a little riddle for you that we will answer at the end of the show. But what does a playground leader and a Disney sci-fi comedy have in common? And some of you might be wondering what a playground leader is, just like my tech guy was wondering what a playground leader is. And you will find that out at the end of the show. So, there are always things coming about and changes coming about. You will hear with our guest, Tania, some of the things that she had originally created in the original Disneyland, and hear about some of the changes. And you would be surprised to hear about a few of the changes. We sometimes, as guests and even cast members of us, are there a certain period of time in our life. And she was actually there working alongside Walt Disney himself. So she's got some really, really interesting stories about Walt, his family, and her work at the park. And we're going to get her on right away here. And she's just a very, very lovely woman who has done some very amazing things in her life and has traveled the far distances of the continent. And we are going to get her on here. So again, if you guys have a question or comment or whatever, please feel free to type it in, and I'll see what I can do to answer it, have it answered for you. So, yeah. Okay. Hi, Tania. It's Kimberly Bouchard. Hi, Tania. Can you hear me all right?
Hello? I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Nice to have you on the show. Welcome. How are you today?
I am wonderful. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. And I don't know if you're watching live at the same time, but I'm wearing a special shirt. And if you're not watching live, you can always see it on the replay and take a peek at the shirt I'm wearing. I think you'll get a kick out of it.
Oh, very good. No, I'm not watching it live.
Okay.
Because I don't know what Your,
Oh,
what is the name of the program?
well, it's Positively Disney Podcast, but you know what? I'll email you a link so you can see it tonight very easily.
Oh,
But
that'd be great.
yeah,
Thank you.
so yeah, of course. Now, people are just maybe becoming re-aware of that there was a haunted mansion wallpaper that you had designed with the eyes, very, very famous wallpaper. Where did you draw your inspiration, Tanya, to create this wallpaper?
We're speaking of 55 years ago,
I
and
know.
sometimes it's a little hard to remember.
Okay.
But I can remember sitting at my desk doodling, and the eyes were a little more elongated to the side, and there was more like wispiness around it. It wasn't as very graphically detailed, and I'm positive, or almost positive, I didn't draw the cutesy little owls that are there now, but it was much more of a floating thing than it was. Now, what we did most of the time was we would find wallpapers and have them adjusted to our needs, but on this one, there wasn't anything available, so that's when I started to doodle. And I'm sure from there it maybe went to the graphic artists and then to the wallpaper people, and everybody would have had a hand in it, but the original one was mine, and the colors have remained the same. Well, the color has remained the same throughout the many, many years.
Oh, yeah. I mean, did you ever think that it would become so famous?
Never. I was totally astonished when somebody told me it had gone viral. Then I Googled one of the companies, and they had, I think, 350 different items with that design on it, and yeah. My mouth kind of dropped. I was totally amazed.
Oh gosh. Well, you know
Totally
what?
amazed.
It's so fun because I sent you that photo of the dress, in the print. And well, actually tonight I'm actually wearing a shirt with the print. And when you say 350 items, I think I've actually got several of those items. I actually got a shower curtain for a spare bathroom and a table runner, and kind of going to do my whole table setting, I guess you could say, for Halloween with that table runner and black and purple placemat. So I think we just fall in love with it, and if anybody sees it, they immediately connect it to the Haunted Mansion. It's such a statement.
That seems to be the way. I was just astonished. I attended an event in Long Beach, and there was even a car that had been covered in the design. They had somehow managed to get that onto the car coloring.
Oh, wow.
And the whole car was covered. And people were coming up and telling me that their whole dining rooms or their living rooms or their hallways all had the fabric, and they were dressed from top to toe in the fabric and the design. And I'm still totally amazed.
Yeah. Oh, that's
because
fun.
For all the items in Disneyland, I mean, to pick that one as something that has really gone international is really amazing.
Yeah.
Astonishing.
Yeah, for sure. Now, just a quick question. Do you have any of those items in your home, or is that left to the rest of us?
Well, I was given when I did a tour of WDI last year, I was given a pair of mouse ears.
Okay.
And I was given a purse, small kind of clutch.
Nice.
So I do have 2 items.
Okay.
Very nice.
There you go. 2 of the 350 items available. There are probably more now.
Right, and these were official Disney ones, not the online ones.
Right. Okay. New Orleans Square is definitely one of my favorite places in all of Disneyland. What parts have you had your hands in? What is your mark in New Orleans Square?
Well, that's what I was hired to be, the interior designer for New Orleans, and so I had a hand in everything from the almost not quite the beginning, but certainly almost at the beginning.
Okay.
And I did travel to New Orleans with Walt and his wife, and Roy and his wife, Edna. Bob Brown who was Walt's son-in-law, my immediate boss, and his wife Sharon.
Right.
Herb Bryman, Bill Martin, Bill Evans, and I think Claude Coates was there, and a couple of others, to do research and purchase things for New Orleans. So I had a hand in all of it, from the interior design to the picking of the fabrics to the furnishings that went into it to the colors outside, the lighting outside. I mean, that was my job.
Oh my goodness! That's quite an intensive amount of work, I would think, because you have to. I mean, you went there, right, to gather inspiration, to gather ideas, right, to get a flavor, I guess. But when you came back to sort of put it all together, did you actually bring things back from New Orleans themselves, or how did you?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
okay.
we did. We brought there were many items of furniture. There were pieces of iron that we replicated for the balconies. All kinds of things came back with us. Also the inspiration. And we had, of course, at WED, as it was called then,
right.
The most remarkable rendering person, Dorothea Redmond, who is one of the icons. And she would, as I'm talking to her and describing the interior or describing something, she was actually painting it on a piece of paper, and it was an amazing thing to watch. She had so much talent and such good taste. So it was basically Bob Brown, who was the art director, Dorothea Redmond, and myself, who thought out the interiors. And, of course, Bill Martin was, I think, in charge of the architectural parts. And,
right.
But the interiors were myself, Bob Brown, and Dorothea.
But
I was the one that did all the foot clogging.
Okay, yeah, of course. It is very, very true to New Orleans. I had the good fortune to be there a few years ago and walk Bourbon Street and as well. And I mean, things have really changed from 55 years ago, that's for sure. But it really has the true atmosphere of what you would find in New Orleans. It's really quite amazing how you captured that.
Well, some of the great inspiration, of course, a lot of it was from visits to New Orleans, not only by myself and Bob, but by Herb Ryman, who did many of the sketches for the exteriors,
right.
The architectural detailings. And of course, we had photographs and we had research, but there were many, many people involved in all of that detailing. And then, of course, the very excellent draftsmen that interpreted our sketches into what could be built.
Yeah.
So it was a group effort.
Yeah, of course.
We didn't sign anything. Yeah. We didn't say, I did this or I did that.
Right.
If I hadn't mentioned a few months ago to somebody that I happened to mention on a program, I think I had designed the wallpaper, nobody would have known, because certainly it wasn't in the records. We just didn't do that.
Right.
Times have changed.
Yeah, they have, for sure. Is there anything, is there one particular area that maybe had a bigger impact on you personally than another?
I don't know about impact, but one of the places that I was really very privileged and I feel I really enjoyed doing was the Club 33, which is the private tea club. And that, again, we purchased many of the items in there from New Orleans, and that was a very rather elegant place where the VIPs and the lessees of the park could be taken. It was the only place in the park where liquor was served, or you could get a drink.
Right.
And it was upstairs above New Orleans, above the shops in New Orleans.
Right.
And I really did enjoy doing that. I enjoyed it all, actually. It was a fascinating job because you never knew what you would be doing, whether it be, I did airplanes, I did a boat, I did some things for the Haunted Mansion, I did shops, restaurants, whatever came up, you did.
Right. You mentioned the Haunted Mansion again. I just have to ask you. Somebody is asking, what do you know? What your favorite item that you had purchased for New Orleans Square, or the most expensive one? Is there one that might have
I
stood out?
I think the most iconic, but nobody really knows about it, is the butcher block that was in the gourmet shop. I bought it in Sunset Boulevard in a shop that handled butchers going out of business, and it was $10, I think. We put it in the gourmet shop, and nobody can prove it really, but I think that must have been the inspiration for all of the butcher block fads that have happened since, because we sold them like crazy. They were very popular, and then of course we've got butcher block everywhere.
Oh,
so I think that was one of the things.
Yeah, yeah.
Then the other thing I think, which is a gem, is the little perfume shop with its reverse paintings on glass. The designs for the glass panels, I think, were done by Dorothea Redmond and then executed by Glenda von Kessel, who was one of the model shop artists. And when I visited a couple of years ago, or about 18 months ago, I was really delighted to see that Glenda was given credit for her paintings, because they are beautiful.
My goodness, the next time I go in there, I'm going to have to take a real close look at that, because I can't, I mean, just being a visitor for a weekend or whatever, I can't always get to see, in fine detail, but definitely we'll be looking in finer detail now because of you, to take and say, hey, I remember Tanya talking about that. I have to smile a little bit. I've got a former cast member on here that back in 1987, his very first attraction that he worked at was at the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland, and he said he used to get a little freaked out when he was alone in the attraction by himself, and he said he would calm himself by singing Christmas carols until guests arrived. So, and I have to attribute that to the whole ambience of the place. I mean, when you think about it, I don't know if there's any real attraction that I'd want to be in by myself, without anybody around. But I thought I'd share that with you.
No,
I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah. There was one fun part in the Haunted Mansion which I really enjoyed, and that was finding all the junk for the attic. The attic scene, and much of it came out of a friend's attic in La Cañada, actually. But that was fun to find all the bits and pieces. Sadly, that's changed, but at that time it was really a lot of most interesting junk.
Oh,
but
I bet.
Do change.
Yeah, I bet. That's one thing that you can actually, because the attraction is the speed that it is, you can actually get a good look of some of the things up there, I find. And then it seems like it's always, not always, but it stops a fair amount of time, just, to help somebody maybe in a wheelchair or whatever needs assistance. So it's kind of lucky for the rest of us that we get to really scrutinize things. I have a funny story because I always look at the brides in the photographs in the Haunted Mansion there in the attic. And this one year, for the not so scary Mickey Halloween party in Walt Disney World, our family dressed up. And I don't know what in the world I was thinking, but because I live 2,000 miles from there, and I actually went to a thrift shop and dragged a full-on wedding dress with me to Florida. And it was very hot, and I glued spiders on. I had, face paint on. I had a long wig on. And I don't do Space Mountain and some of those things, so I would sit outside very still. And the cast members actually thought I was the bride from the Haunted Mansion.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot of the kids. And, I dragged that wedding dress back with me because it was just so authentic, and I thought, I wonder whoever the person was that got married in it, probably not 50 years ago, but a good long time ago, would they get a kick out of thinking that they're, I had worn it as a costume at Walt Disney World. So I know you were saying that you basically, wherever they needed you to decorate, you did that. Now, are there any shops on Main Street that you had done, the original shops, or even anything that's still around today?
I don't know if anything's still around. I mean, you can start with the Lincoln Theater. I did quite a lot in there, and the Bank of America, when that first came into, I don't know if that's still there actually, but I managed to find portraits of the originators of the B of A from San Francisco, and had them, what we would call Photoshop today, but actually had them put into the dress of the period for the Bank of America. Then there was a jewelry shop owned by a delightful man called Dwight Long, who had actually sailed around the world in the 1930s in a 10-foot boat. And he had the jewelry shop, and also I think one in San Pedro. And I would dress the windows. And I remember I put in a mannequin that was dressed like a trader that would go around the farms with a tray around their neck and jewelry on the tray. And he sold an enormous amount of jewelry from that, which surprised me. But it was really rather eye-catching. Then in the C&H shop, which was on the corner, I remember I suggested that they have colored sugar in there, which they didn't, because I was a cook, made cakes and things, but they brought that in, and they also brought in my suggestion a pickle barrel, and that was very popular. So it was little things like that which you could add to the ambiance when you came up with an idea, and quite often the lessees were very receptive because they were always looking of ways to attract more people into their shops and more money.
Yeah, of course. Well, and as we all know, it's the shops that close, I think, 2 hours after the park closes, for all those people that want to get their goodies, right? Yeah. Something that has that I was really surprised to hear, and it just makes sense, because if you're decorating his park, and he loves your style and what you do, Walt would definitely have you decorate his homes. But how in the world did that happen? How did you end up decorating Walt Disney and his family's homes?
Well, I traveled with Walt and Lily and Roy and Edna and Bob and Sharon, and they knew that I had some knowledge of antiques. So that's really how it started, because they all loved English antiques, and I would take them antique shopping.
Okay.
And so from that, I didn't do that much for Walt and Lily. I did take her shopping. I took her antique shopping with Diane several times, but I didn't do that much in their home.
Okay.
But I did some work for Roy and Edna, and I also Bob and Sharon's home, and after Bob passed away, in Sharon's new home. So I did also, the condos in Aspen that were owned, and also I think a little bit for something in Wyoming, if I remember correctly. But it just so happened, and it was probably because of having met them on that trip, that I had the knowledge that they needed.
So the theme was English antiques. That was sort of the theme that they went for, I guess, in their decorating? Yes. Okay.
They didn't like anything that was very fussy or ostentatious.
Oh, very interesting. Now, you have, you traveled with the family, and I'd love to just talk a wee bit about the family before we finish here. A little bit individually, if we can. You are so fortunate to have been able to not only have met the family, but know them quite well, in your workings with them, and that Walt and Lillian and Diane and Sharon and Roy and Edna. What were they like? What were they like as individuals? Maybe we'll start with Walt. What was Walt like as an individual?
Walt to me was just so amazingly considerate and very, very concerned about me in many ways, because when I traveled with him, I was actually airsick on the plane going to New Orleans. We tried not to let Walt know, but I was so nervous. And anyway, various meals. We would meet for breakfast in the hotel. Well, after breakfast, we would meet in his suite, and he would be reading the newspaper, very casual. We'd talk about what I'd be doing during the day, where I was going. And then we'd meet at a different restaurant for both lunch and dinner each day, so that I would be able to see and flavor New Orleans. And
Nice.
when the waiter would come and ask what I would like to drink, he would say, "The girl doesn't get a drink." And that was the end of it. And I really didn't. That was fine with me because I really didn't drink
Right.
until the very last night. Because from New Orleans we went first of all to Florida, which was just a hole in the ground,
Right.
and Bill Evans had started a tree farm there.
Okay.
And then from Florida we flew into New York for the second year of the World Fair. And each day Walt would ask the driver, the limo driver, to take us on a different route to the fair so that I could see New York. So that was the kind of consideration that he had. And then the very last night at dinner, when the waiter asked what I would care to drink, Lily said, "For goodness sake, Walt, let the girl have a drink." And he said, "I will not add to the juvenile delinquency of America.
Oh.
No drink." That was it. So, I mean, that's the kind of concern and consideration he had. That, we would go to all these different restaurants, both in New Orleans and New York. We would go different routes. I mean, that was my knowledge of Walt.
Yeah.
He would come into WED and come to my office, which was just by the back door, and he'd say, "What you working on?" And I'd say, I'd show him, and he'd say, "Oh, I like that." Or he'd say, "What you spending my money on?" And I'd show him, and I'd say, "Oh, that's all right," and he'd walk off. So that was the kind of friendship or relationship I had with Walt.
Yeah.
It was a very casual, but a very, very nice one. And there were times when I wanted to bring something to his attention on a project, and I would have discussed it with Bob Brown or John Hench and expected them to bring it up, and they didn't. So I would be left standing with Walt, and I would say, "Well, this one thought I had, and maybe we could have a larger ladies' room," but I didn't phrase it that way. And he kind of looked at it, and he said, "Oh, that's the manager's office over there." I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, we just have the manager's office. This was for Club 33.
Oh,
So we got a larger ladies' room."
Nice.
Things like that.
Yeah.
He would always listen and always very receptive to whatever I was suggesting. So I guess I was really, it was a very nice, to me, working
Nice working relationship for sure. Yeah. Now you spend a little bit of time with Lillian as well, right? Just on her.
Well, I take her. Yes, I take her antique shopping, and she and Diane quite often together because they had similar tastes.
Okay.
And I did much more work for Diane than I did for Lillian. But yes, I took her out several times, and we'd have lunch while we were shopping.
Right.
So yes, I got to know her a little bit too.
Yeah. My goodness. And then I think Sharon, you knew Sharon and her first husband, because
Bob Brown.
Bob, yeah, because you had decorated their home.
He was my boss.
Oh,
well, he was my boss.
He was your boss too.
He was the art. He was my boss.
Right,
He was the
I
art
forgot
director
about
in charge.
Right.
No, he was. But I didn't do as much for her first home or their first home because Bob was a designer too.
Right.
But I did when Bob died and she remarried. I worked on her second home, her home then.
Okay.
And that was later.
Now, were they any bit like Walt, or were they? I'm just curious to know, because sometimes you in family members you see some of them taking after certain parents, and I was just curious, what were the girls like?
I don't know if I would say they were like either of them. They were just, everybody was just very down to earth and very, very nice to me, very considerate and just genuinely nice people.
Yeah.
Same with Edna.
Right.
Edna and Roy, they were the same. I would see them on a Saturday having coffee at Bullock's Wilshire, and they'd always make sure that they would say hello before they left, or if I was leaving first, that I would say hello. hello to them. So
Right.
they were all just very down to earth and very, very nice people.
No, boy. You know,
That my
go ahead. Go ahead.
I said that was my experience with all of them.
Yeah. I think that that's absolutely lovely. I think you have some really fond memories of the family and your work there as well. And, it's something that, people might want to know this that are listening, but did you go to school for any training? Now I know the answer to this, but for our audience sake, did you did you go to school to learn any of this
Oh,
before they hired
well,
you?
you know, you must remember there were different circumstances. First of all, I'm from Great Britain, and at the age of 8, I had decided I wanted to decorate homes. So at the age of 15, I left school and I started work 2 weeks later as an apprentice to become an interior decorator.
Oh,
And so there were no schools at that time. There were schools for architecture.
right.
And I did go to night school for architectural drawing and rendering.
Mm.
But no, I had no formal training. It was a school of hard knocks and your own talents.
Mm.
And I left England when I was 18 and went to Africa to live for 5 years. And I did some
Wow.
design work there. Then returned to England, and a year and a half later came here. That was in 63. In 64, I started at WED. I
Gee.
had no portfolio, per se.
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 letters of recommendation, and I had a knowledge that they thought was what they needed. So
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to be employed back in, I think, November of 1964.
Wow. There is a lot to be said for experience because living and traveling in different parts of the world, I mean, you absorb that entirely, and then to put it into your work, I think makes far more sense and comes from within than reading about it in a textbook. I just think it's. I'm not saying that they're not authentic from a textbook, but I think
No,
it's more authentic if you've lived in these places and you've got something more to
well,
bring to the table.
you do need some theory. Sorry, you do need some theory and some background. But I grew
Sure.
up with antiques,
Yeah.
so that was kind of second nature to me, which
Okay.
came in very handy.
Nice.
And but nowadays they do have, as everybody knows, I suppose, that there are degrees you can get in interior design,
Right.
but that doesn't help you with the practicality or the common sense that is really needed when you're designing a home or a building or even a haunted mansion, for that matter. There's a lot of common sense involved.
Yeah. Now, when did you? I know that you. So I can't remember when you left Walt Disney Company, but did you have a chance to go back to see your work at all in that time period? Have you been back at all to see, I guess, some of your work and changes? Okay.
Not until 2 years. There was a gap of 50 odd years.
Wow.
Well, 48 years, I guess.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Between my leaving and my actual visiting Disneyland. And even then, I really saw very little of it because I was taken as a guest to Club 33.
Oh, okay.
And all we did was walk down Main Street and over to the club and back.
Right.
But then, about 18 months ago, I had a very lovely visit, invited by Disneyland to tour. I saw quite a few things which I had worked on,
Oh, nice.
most of which, of course, had changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But I did see some of it. I not thoroughly,
Mm-hmm.
but there are so many new areas too which I hadn't seen.
Right. Yeah.
But,
Well, I mean,
it was nice to see that some things had still there,
yeah.
but very little.
Oh gosh. I know that place has changed. I mean, when I was first there when I was 12 years old, and I saw some of the changes throughout, the time that I was fortunate to visit Disneyland. But I think it's an absolutely wonderful part of your legacy, honestly, Tanya. I think it's just, it's really, really nice to have had that opportunity and that time, to work for the company and put your mark on things. Really, that's kind of what it's about. If you're creating,
Well,
you would like your mark
I,
left,
I
right?
think it was yeah, I think it was an exceptional time to work there because Walt was still alive. Everything we did was approved by him.
Yeah.
I was working with, as I said, Dorothea Redmond, who was sensational,
Mm-hmm.
Herbert Ryman, who was an incredible artist and became a very dear friend,
Yeah.
Mark Davis, he and his wife Alice became friends. I mean,
Ah,
there were so many of the icons. Well, I knew them all, really,
yeah.
because that's people I was working with.
Yeah.
But it was a time of a group effort. It wasn't a time of an individual effort.
Right. Right.
And although Mark did all the things for the Pirates of the Caribbean, there were still other people involved too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this is what I think made it really the exceptional place that it has become.
Mm-hmm.
Although it has changed, the dynamics, excuse me, have changed a great deal over the years.
Right. Wow.
But I think I worked at really the most fabulous time because I was there when Walt was there. So
Absolutely.
everything had his seal of
Stamp.
approval,
Yeah, exactly.
which has changed.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, he's not with us. Oh, that's
People,
outstanding.
people have forgotten some of the traditions, some of the things which Walt liked,
Mm.
rather sadly. But also the public's taste changed, so you
Right.
change with the time.
Yeah, yeah, the times do change, but I think that it's still nice that some of the originals are still there, and I can't see, Haunted Mansion in New Orleans Square not going anywhere anytime soon. So I think it's
No.
absolutely lovely. Yeah. Gosh, Tanya, thank you.
If I may make one more comment
Yes.
about when people do go,
Yeah.
that they should remember that the park is really, Disneyland is really for grown-ups. You keep the romance and all the fun for the kids, but really when you go, look at the detail, look at all the thought, all the really behind-the-scenes work that made it look as it is today. It didn't just happen.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of research went into it, a lot of going backwards and forwards of making things work. Also, having items manufactured for us because of the number of people. We were creating fabrics, creating walk coverings
Mm-hmm.
that would be able to be used by thousands of people. This had never happened before.
Mm.
So unique in many, many ways, and something for the grown-ups to think about. It's not just a children's paradise.
Right. Yeah, and just to be able to go there and sort of smell the roses, for lack of a better expression, to just slow down and
The gardens,
take it in.
all the gardens are just, that was one of my true pleasures, was when on a Monday when the park was closed, was to go and just take 10 minutes or 5 minutes sometimes just to myself to sit and listen to the birds and look at the landscaping, because Bill Evans was really a genius at the landscaping. Marvelous man.
Oh gosh, yeah, they are beautiful. I mean, the roses are absolutely beautiful. But you said something that I am going to ask you about. So was Disneyland closed on Mondays?
Yes, it was closed on Mondays so that they could paint or refresh something, repair something, whatever it was needed. We were closed on a Monday.
I didn't know that.
And the other couple of things that you might not know were that there was no chewing gum sold in Disneyland,
Right.
and that there was always a firing range or something like that would attract the men that was close by a ladies' room.
Oh.
So the men would have something to do when the ladies disappeared.
You know what? That still exists. That's so funny.
Yes, yeah. And there are no knives. There were no knives or chewing gum ever sold in the park. I don't know about today, but people would bring them in, but they weren't allowed. They weren't actually sold in the park.
Yeah, no, yeah. They still don't sell chewing gum, and you definitely can't buy a knife unless you're talking about maybe a little plastic pirate knife. I'm not even sure if they do that anymore. But oh my goodness, I think that's so funny that's why the shooting range was right there where the women's washrooms were, which is a great idea actually.
I think actually that was Walt. He said they needed something for the men.
Oh. Well, he had two daughters and a wife, so he was quite outnumbered and
Right.
probably had
Yeah.
to stand plenty of times outside of a woman's restroom,
Well,
right?
you must. Yeah, and you must remember it was really the daughters that created the idea for Disneyland,
Yeah.
because Walt was a remarkable father and would spend all the time he could with the two girls, and he would take them over to Griffith Park
Mm.
and to the trains there,
Mm-hmm.
and he realized that there was the need for something that would was clean,
Right.
that parents could take their children.
Mm.
He also, of course, was unique that he had the people that could make that happen,
Yeah.
and he had an organization where the film crews would be on furlough during the summer, and he could have year-round work for everybody. So he
Ah,
created something that was unique again.
gosh, taking care of his extended family, right?
Yes.
Isn't well, I have to tell you that I think it's been such a pleasure speaking with you tonight, Tanya. As always, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, and I just want to thank you so much for taking time because I know you're busy. Everybody wants to hear from you or something like that, and I just want to thank you so much for joining me tonight on the podcast. And as soon as we get things wrapped up, I will get the program off to you in an email tonight. But thank you
Oh,
again.
thank, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been a delight going down memory lane once more
Yeah.
and reminisce about really an amazing period in my life.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for inviting me.
Oh, well, it was my
And
pleasure
I look
to.
forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, sounds good, Tanya. We'll be in touch. Okay, thanks. Have a good night and take care.
And you.
Thank
You.
you.
Goodbye.
Okay, bye bye. Oh my goodness. Gosh, that is really some interesting things. I never knew about Mondays was when Disneyland was closed. That just seems like it's unheard of now, isn't it? I just want to tell you the answer to what does a playground leader and a Disney sci-fi comedy have in common. Well, I'm going to start in the newer version of things. So in 2003, on this day, a film called Flight of the Navigator was put out on VHS and DVD. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that movie. I don't know why I forgot that it was even a Disney film. But at any rate, it's a wonderful movie, but it originally came out August 1st, 1986. Now, August 1st, 1986, I was actually going to university. And during my summers in school, I think it was college, maybe college before I went to university. At any rate, while I was going to school, I became a playground leader. And what that entailed is back in Canada, they had parks and recreation programs. So they would have a person assigned to a neighborhood playground park with a little tiny cabin house that had all our sports equipment in, all our arts and crafts and things like that. So that's what I did all summer, which was a bonus for me because I could work on my tan and I could have fun playing with the neighborhood kids, which actually was right up my alley because I ended up becoming a teacher. I was studying doing my Bachelor of Education. But at any rate, that summer of 1986, when that movie came out, it was all the talk of the park. And what the movie is about, a boy named David, who is 12 years old, who basically kind of was blacked out for about 4.5 hours. That actually was 8 years. And what they found out in the course of the movie is that he was abducted by aliens and he came back and he went to his home. But things had changed because he hadn't aged 8 years, but everybody else had. And it's a really fun story. But what was so unique about the August of 1986, that first week in August, is that I organized times to go see the movie. And it ended up that I think over the course of the week, I had kids sign up, I think they gave notes. I mean, it was something very loose, for lack of a better word, back in those days. And I went to see the movie twice a day for about 3 days in a row. And so I remember that movie, and I remember that I enjoyed it every single time. And it's very rare that I would ever see a movie more than once, maybe twice in a theater, if not, but at that time I'd gone to see Flight of the Navigator. So I'm not sure if it's on Disney Plus. I would hope so. But if it is, check it out, because that was actually just on the edge of 3D animation. They hadn't quite gotten into that whole realm quite yet. It was just on the edge of it. But anyways, it was filmed, actually, you guys in Florida, it was filmed in Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood, Florida. So any of you guys living in that neck of the woods, you might recognize some of that. But anyway, so it was actually put out on DVD, VHS, exactly October 14th in 2003. So check it out on Disney Plus tonight if you can. Guys, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was just really lovely to have you all with me. And I look forward to seeing some of you in Southern California this weekend. And I will share what I am doing in Southern California with you guys on my next on the next show. But for now, you guys take care, be well, and good night.